You set foot on foreign soil. Only this land isn't ruled by any country or government. In this land we celebrate music. In this land we celebrate games. In this land we celebrate those who compose video game music. Welcome to the VGMbassy. Hello everyone, welcome and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the VGMbassy. This is a show centered around video game music and the amazing online community of fans and podcasters that enjoy it. My name's Ed, and on each episode I'll take the role of Prime VGM Minister and invite a guest VG Ambassador onto the show to share with us their own video game music culture, or I may share a part of my culture on a solo show. Welcome, one and all, to episode 101. I had a great month last month celebrating the VGMbassy's 100th episode. It was everything I hoped that it would be. Fantastic show with tons of guests. A great follow-up on Embassy exclusive at the end of the month with some more folks chiming in and talking about their favorite memories, their favorite guests. Lots of cool music played. It was just such a fun time kind of reliving the past 100 episodes. And now we're turning our sights to the next 100 episodes. As I'm sure you noticed at the beginning of the show, we've got the new remade theme song from Trevin Hughes, aka Dread, rocking the party out. So that'll be the new theme song for the VGMbassy going forward. If you do miss the old theme song, you can actually head over to Dread's SoundCloud, and he has that song in its entirety, I believe without my voiceover, so you can actually get a full version of that tune for yourself to listen to, the old one, and he might end up putting the new one up there at some point as well, so it might be fun to do a little contrast and compare. In any case, let's talk about episode 101. I did mention that after doing two giant shows back-to-back, the 10th anniversary Pixel Tunes Radio reunion and the 100th VGMbassy episode, I wanted to keep it kind of simple this time. It's still going to be a ton of fun. There's still going to be a lot of great music. We're just doing a solo show for now. We've got some very cool stuff. This is a follow-up. So episode 44 of the VGMbassy was Mystery Indie Bundle VGM, and it was an idea I had for a show concept where I would purchase a random Steam bundle from, I think it was fanatical.com was the website, which I did again this time. And what you do is you get like a certain amount of Steam keys depending on how much money you spend, anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20. And you don't know what you have until you redeem those keys. And it's always fun. I love doing it. You just get a whole bunch of crazy games that you may have never heard of before and the opportunity to play them. If I end up with duplicate keys, I share those on the free key depot over on the VGMbassy Discord. So you can always head over there and pick up maybe some of the titles that I'm sharing on this show if I had duplicates. And it's just fun. There were a lot of cool soundtracks that I shared on episode 44, and I hadn't had the opportunity to revisit it until now. So, episode 101, Mystery Indie Bundle VGM 2, starts now. I'm making a quick exception for the first song I'm sharing on this show, however. I came across this game. Well, actually, this game has been in trailer form for quite a while. I think it was shared at an E3 like 2 or 3 years ago. It's called Pacific Drive, and it immediately grabbed my attention because it felt like a drivable Silent Hill, almost. Station wagon, kind of kitted out in some weird technology, driving through the Pacific Northwest with weird anomalies all over the place. It just looked really super cool, and I'd kind of forgotten about it until the game got released a couple of months ago. There was a demo out, lots of YouTubers were streaming it, so I checked it out immediately. It's not the kind of game that I necessarily think I'd have a lot of fun playing, but watching people play it has been an absolute joy, and I'm glad that I've kind of gotten more into like YouTubers and streaming and watching people play games, because I'm getting to experience a lot of these games that I normally wouldn't have the patience to do myself. This is one of those games. When I heard this song, which is kind of like the theme song of the game, even though it plays over the car radio, I was floored. This one is called Ghost on the Road, and it's from the musical collective known as A Shell in the Pit. Specifically, Gordon McGladdery is the composer on this one, and it's a vocal track. It's a very cool theme song. It sounds very modern, but it's also got some of those really kind of groovy industrial elements and a lot of really, really powerful instrumentation. So when I heard it, I was like, I need to share this on the show, and I need to share it immediately. I hope you guys like it. Please let me know in the comments on the VGMbassy.com, or come hang out in the Discord. Let me know what you think of this track. I think it's phenomenal, but I know sometimes my tastes don't always match everybody else's. So let's check this out. Ghost on the Road from Pacific Drive, released on the PC in 2024. Again, composed by A Shell in the Pit, aka Gordon McGladdery.
Sulfur and smoke glows through the snow and smells like money. Rivers for spines between the dry pines of bones unbecoming. And you might have to hang behind me. You might have to hang behind red eyes on the highway. On the road, it's a cold one. What a white one. My heart it froze. It's a cold one. Thinking of home. You might have to hang behind me, hang behind me. You might have to hang behind these lights on the highway.
Man, okay, that was Ghost on the Road by Gordon McGladdery, aka A Shell in the Pit, from the game Pacific Drive, released on PC in 2024, just a month or two ago. And man, I just love this tune so much. The instrumentation is absolutely mind-blowing, super powerful. It's got that clanky industrial beat in the background, but it's got like the horn sections and guitars over it, make it feel like it's I don't know, kind of like a classic rock song or a classic blues jam. And the vocals are out of this world. So I was only familiar with A Shell in the Pit because he composed the music to Rogue Legacy and Rogue Legacy 2, both of which are very video gamey, entirely instrumental, and they're great soundtracks. I actually shared a track from Rogue Legacy on Pixel Tunes right after the game had gotten released, so I've been aware of Shell in the Pit for a while. I was not expecting this as kind of an evolution of his sound. So, I don't know. The game sees you as a courier who's driving close to this exclusion zone in the Pacific Northwest. It's called the Olympic Exclusion Zone. And it's an area where scientists had been doing some experiments and they got out of hand, and the very fabric of reality kind of started to unravel in this area, so they built a huge wall around it, like something out of Attack on Titan or something. And as you're making this delivery towards the borders of this wall, you encounter an anomaly which sucks you inside the exclusion zone. And you find this beat-up old station wagon not far from where you kind of violently land, and you hear voices on the radio, and the voices are of a few people that are stuck in the exclusion zone, and they kind of guide you through getting the car back together, getting to this garage, and then through that, not to get too into it, but the station wagon is kind of a living entity, and it can absorb the energy from the area and kind of help you move from area to area. And it's got some roguelike qualities where because of the anomalies, the layouts of the area are always kind of changing and reconfiguring. And the concept is you need to get yourself back home. And that's where this song comes in, especially the lyrics of the song. Ghost on the road, it's a cold one, thinking of home, you might have to hang behind. You know, there's like all of these kind of lonely, wistful verses in this song, and those lyrics really drive home the motivation of the courier that you're playing as in the game. If you like games with a crafting gameplay loop and some off-road driving and some really, really weird kind of anomalous entities, not necessarily all like monsters that want to they're not shooting at you or anything, but it's just like razor blades that come out of the ground and electronic spikes and just road hazards, I guess, that have minds of their own. Watch some video of it, watch a trailer of it. If you're into those kind of games, it's a super high quality one to play. Me, myself, I'm really enjoying watching a couple of my favorite YouTubers play it, and I'm hoping that they end up finishing it because I want to see it through to the end. This track, just like I said, blew me away. It's not really part of the Random Indie Bundle. It's more just something that I was having a lot of fun listening to in a game that I was having a lot of fun with, and I wanted to share it at the top of the show. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. Let's move on to the beginning of our Random Indie Bundle. So what I did was I purchased 20 games from this fanatical Random Bundle, and I chose 10 that were interesting to me, that had great music. I'll share the other 10 that I did not share at the end of the show and kind of explain a little bit why they didn't make it into the show. But these 10, I feel, all have really good soundtracks, worth listening to. Some of the games are of varying quality, but I found something redeeming in just about all of them, and I found some redeeming music in all of them, and I'm hoping maybe you guys will discover something that you didn't know existed, and we'll have some fun. Moving on from a randomized roguelite game in Pacific Drive, we're going to move on to a 2021 game called Dead Estate. This is a fun pixel art game, and it's composed by Major Wipeout, and the track title is Here We Go Again. It's the first stage theme. Enjoy. Alright, that was Here We Go Again from Dead Estate, released on PC in 2021, composed by Major Wipeout, or just Major, I think, as he calls himself now. Major Wipeout is what the Bandcamp page is called. Fun tune, really dependent on that chord progression that the bass is going through, and then just little kind of staccato melodic notes over it. It's got a very classic feel, but I can't really place what kind of chip console they were going for. I don't really think they were going for anything. It's just fun, maybe more of like kind of a Super Nintendo aesthetic or something. Pretty jaunty. It's a longer track, coming in at almost 3 minutes, and it feels like it's gonna loop, but then you get that kind of lower register synth solo towards the end of the song, which I feel kind of adds a little bit more gravitas to it, if that's the right word. It just makes it feel a little like it gets a little more serious at the end, a little more intense, and I really like that. This is a cool tune. It plays on the first stage, like I said, and because the game is a roguelike, you've got permadeath, so you are playing the first stage a lot, so you get to hear this song a lot, and it's good that it's a really good tune. I think they chose one of the best for that first level because it's just kind of a bop. I appreciate it a lot. Major, as a composer, has worked on a few game soundtracks. Not much information on him. His Bandcamp bio just says, "I'm just a guy who likes to make music for games." I can't fault him for that. His credits include Dead Estate, Bonkers, and Ugby Mumba. 2 games which I am not familiar with, and of course Dead Estate. So I want to listen to those other 2 soundtracks as well and see what kind of other jams he's been rocking with. It's made by a developer known as Milk Bar Lads, which might have Clockwork Orange connotations, perhaps. It's a fun game. It's an isometric perspective, so diagonal, kind of like Solstice or Equinox or that kind of a thing. But it's, according to the devs, inspired by both Nuclear Throne and Resident Evil. So it's got kind of like the roguelite action run and gun gameplay of Nuclear Throne with the haunted mansion aesthetic of Resident Evil. Kind of a pixel arty / modern webcomic look to the characters. Very basic premise of a young woman on the side of the road hitchhiking. Kind of a grizzled, older, heavyset guy picks her up. They start driving down the road, kind of talking and laughing, and almost hit this undead thing. As they start getting attacked, and they run to the nearest place, which just happens to be a mansion. So very, very close to the Resident Evil mythos. And inside the mansion is this very busty witch who starts changing the mansion around and sending enemies after them, and they've got to get through. And once in a while, the witch will pop up and sell them some potions, and you can choose to be either the older guy or the younger girl, and they both have different weapons and abilities and stuff like that. So there's some replayability to it. I haven't gotten much past the second level. It's a tough game, and it doesn't carry perks over from run to run. So when you die, you basically die, and you've got to start back from square one. You don't carry any powers over from run to run. So I'm not used to roguelikes like that. I'm used to at least having a little bit of a oomph after the effort I've put in, so it's been rough goings for me. I am enjoying it, though. It is a lot of fun. The art is really good. The bosses are really creative, so worth playing. It's pretty cheap on Steam when it goes on sale, so put it on your wish list, and when it's like $2 or $3, give it a whirl. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, let's move on to our next one. This one is an interesting one because it's a remake of an older game, and a game that us North Americans might not be nearly as familiar with as Europeans. We're going to listen to Gaul Hard Fight from Asterix and Obelix XXL Romastered. This was released on the PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox, Switch, all in 2020, composed by Fabrice Bouillon-LaForest, who composed the original game on the Game Boy Advance, PS2, and GameCube, and arranged by Valentin Lafort for the remastered version. Alright, we're back. That was Gaul Hard Fight from Asterix and Obelix XXL Romastered, originally composed by Fabrice Bouillon-LaForest on the Game Boy Advance, PS2, and GameCube, and arranged by Valentin Lafort for the new version on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, released in 2020. The original game came out in 2003, so it was a good 17 years between the original release and the Romastered. Because you're fighting the Romans, instead of remastered, they put Romastered. It's a cute little play on words. Like I said, North Americans might be only vaguely familiar with Asterix and Obelix because it's a comic strip that mainly appeared in UK comics. And I believe they had cartoons as well. It was a comic strip, comic book, and cartoon. And lots of Asterix and Obelix video games came out as well. On the NES, on the Game Boy Color, there was at least one on the SNES, so it kind of like hit all of the Nintendo consoles and then moved on to PlayStation, PlayStation 2. The only reason I really knew about them earlier was because Alberto Jose Gonzalez wrote the soundtracks for a whole bunch, and I think actually worked on programming a whole bunch of the earlier 8 and 16-bit Asterix and Obelix titles. So I was just kind of surface level familiar with them just through trying out those games and listening to those soundtracks. It's historical comedic fiction, more or less. The premise of the game is it's 50 BC. Gaul is occupied by the Romans, and one village of Gauls remain, of which Asterix and Obelix are members of, and basically they have to fight their way through all the Romans and take back their land and rescue all of their friends along the way. I wasn't sure what to expect when I fired this game up because it looked cool, but I knew it was a remaster of an older game, so it could have gone a couple of different ways. I was really pleasantly surprised. The graphics are great, smooth frame rate. The combat is fun and smooth. Like, I was having a lot of fun with it. You can switch between Asterix and Obelix. Asterix, kind of similar to what we just talked about in Dead Estate. You've got the smaller, quicker character, and then the bigger, lumbering character. Each have their own abilities, and you mainly play as Asterix, the smaller, faster one. You can run onto different platforms with items on them that let you choose between the two of them, and like 3 Dirty Dwarves or something, you use each other's abilities to help you get through levels, while also doing some beat-em-up fighting along the way. The soundtrack took me by surprise because it's some really, really good electronic music. The original PS2 GameCube version had, I'd say, period-appropriate European PlayStation soundtrack. It was just kind of like generic electronic dance music, which, doesn't really fit for a game that takes place in 50 BC, but they really kicked it up a notch for Romastered. And I love this one because they added some elements of period-appropriate music, some tribal kind of drums and some woodwinds and stuff that make it feel kind of like 50 BC Roman era. I'm not 100% sure what kind of music they had back then, but it does feel a little bit more period appropriate to me than just straight up techno. The songs are remakes of the originals, but they add a lot of depth to them. It was actually pretty hard for me to decide which piece I wanted to play on this show because the entire soundtrack is actually really, really good. Real hidden gem. Also, very difficult to find. You can find the soundtrack on YouTube, but I haven't been able to find a good game rip of the game anywhere. I'll probably have to dig into the files and see if I can pull a good version out myself. But I was surprised with this one. I went in with very low expectations, but it succeeded on all levels. The cool thing is you can also just tap the R button on your controller and it will switch back and forth between the standard 4:3 aspect ratio and simpler polygons of the PS2 version. And then you tap it again and you're back to widescreen, high-res, high-def stuff. And there are some cool new timed courses that you can play to get bonuses through the levels where you have to, you stand on a stopwatch and it'll start a little race where you have to race around the level and get a whole bunch of items so that you can get some power-ups. And part of the mechanic of those races is you have to switch back and forth between classic graphics and remastered graphics in order to get all of the items that you need to along this course. So I thought that was cool. They were kind of adding in a little bit of the classic polygon stuff into the gameplay itself. And the transition between the two is completely smooth. There's no interruption in the action. And the music changes to the original soundtrack and back again too, so you can very easily compare and contrast what they've done with the new version compared to the old version. I thought that was a lot of fun as well. Cool game. I love that I got it at a cheap price. I will probably end up finishing this one. Again, another one to put on your wish list and grab it when it goes on sale. All right, we're 2 for 2 in terms of game and music. Next up is Returning to the Refuge from the game Sparklight. This was released on PC, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and Android in 2019, and the music's going to be good because it was composed by Dale North. That was Returning to the Refuge from Sparklight, released on PC, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and Android in 2019, and composed by Dale North. This one plays, I believe, in the town, your kind of base of operations for this game. It's got super duper SNES Square RPG town vibes, I think. I hear a lot of like Secret of Mana in this one, and I just love it. It is so easy to listen to. It almost feels like it just fits into my ears like a glove. Gentle accordion melodies and kind of very rounded bongo percussion with some shakers in the background. Like, it's all just really friendly instrumentation and a very friendly composition. Makes you feel at home. That's the mark of a fantastic composer, as you can listen to it once and almost feel like it's nostalgic for something that you don't even know. So this track immediately caught my ear, and it's a really good soundtrack all around. This one just made me like almost feel calm It like takes your stress away. It's really cool like that. The game itself is a top-down action RPG. There are some obvious elements borrowed from the Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past era games, for sure. But the combat's got kind of a dodging mechanic similar to something you might see in Dark Souls, although I don't think it's as difficult as like a Dark Souls game. But it's got some randomization going on too. The villain has unleashed a curse on the land, which makes the landscape kind of reconfigure itself every time you die. And every time you die, you get plucked back into this giant airship, which is also serving as your town and kind of hub world above the area that you're traversing through. So it seems fun. I haven't given it too much time. It looks like a kind of game where you're going to sink about 8 to 10 hours into, according to some of the reviews that I read. A bunch of reviews said if you enjoy games like Hyper Light Drifter, if you like the top-down Zelda games, if you like Secret of Mana, this is definitely a game to check out. So, a game that totally went under my radar, because I don't really seek games like this out. I probably would not have listened to this soundtrack had I not gotten the game in this bundle, so I'm happy that it did. Dale North has some absolutely fantastic soundtracks to his name. Recently, he composed the soundtrack for Wizard of Legend, Snacko, Dreamscaper, Wargroove 2, which has a phenomenal soundtrack. I've listened to that quite a bit. The Long Return, Helvetii, Marble Knights. So, really cool indie soundtracks. And I'm sure he'll be working on more in the future as well. Alright, next up is Grand Mountain Radio 105.5 from Grand Mountain Adventure. This is composed by Victor Serre and Sebastian Serre. Alright, that was another very chill track. That was Grand Mountain Radio 105.5 from Grand Mountain Adventure, aka Grand Mountain Adventure Wonderlands, composed by Victor Serre and Sebastian Serre. So the way I understand it is this game has two different versions. Grand Mountain Adventure was the original mobile game, and then it was kind of expanded upon a little bit for Grand Mountain Adventure Wonderlands, which was released on PC in 2022. The game was developed by Toplava Games, which is essentially a duo, the aforementioned Sebastian and Victor Serre, so they not only created the game, but they wrote all the music for it themselves. My understanding is that they are a brother team of programmers and musicians, which I thought was super cool. This is a very chill game, which fits perfectly with this very chill soundtrack. You are a skier, and you can bring up to 3 friends online and explore this gigantic, snowy area with multiple ski resorts and tons of ski lifts to unlock by doing different challenges on different slopes. You can race your friends. You can just ski around and explore the area. It's a top-down view, so skiing is a little bit difficult to get used to. They're kind of like tank-like controls, but the whole perspective is similar to, as we were just talking about, the Legend of Zelda series or something like that, which makes it fun to play with multiple people because you can see each other on the screen very easily, and it's not all behind the skier cameras for everyone. If you had a bunch of friends and you were all really into skiing, I can see this game being a ton of fun. I do like the soundtrack because, as described in the title, Grand Mountain Radio 105.5, is you have like a little personal radio, and you can tune it into different frequencies, and each one will play a different selection of music. So you can kind of choose your tunes as you're skiing around and trying to unlock stuff and exploring more of the mountain and all of the resorts. And you just have a chill, fun, wintry time. If you're stuck in a hot area in the middle of July, a game like this might cool you down, because it is a very chilly, very snowy looking game. Again, another one that would have completely flown under my radar if I hadn't gotten this in the bundle. And the game might not necessarily be for me, but the music is super, super chill. This one's just got that lo-fi beats to study to aesthetic, twinkly piano keys over kind of a smooth hip-hop percussive background. Most of the music on this soundtrack sounds very similar to this. So, Utopia Nemo, if you're listening, shades of the Grindstone soundtrack, but maybe the chill after party of the Grindstone soundtrack. I think that's the best way to describe it. Definitely worth a listen. This has been some of the tunes I've been listening to while I've been working. It's just great, kind of do other things while you're listening music. All right, we'll change things up a little bit as we head towards some historical fiction. This one is called The Guardian Forest, from the game For the King. This released on PC in 2018, composed by John Robert Matz. I feel like I'm sitting in a tavern sipping on some mead. That was The Guardian Forest from For the King, released on the PC in 2018 and composed by John Robert Matz. I'm normally not a big fan of this genre of music, and the game is a tactical RPG, so I'm not much of a fan of those either. I did enjoy this tune, though. It really gave me some, Lord of the Rings vibes. Again, this is, I guess, kind of the chill music portion of our show, where the last 3 tracks have been very chill, but in very different ways. You've got that kind of tribal-ish Secret of Mana style from Sparklight. You've got the electronic after-party style chill music from Grand Mountain Adventure. And now you've got kind of a bard in a sleepy tavern tune from For the King. I do really like the production on this, for sure. It's mixed really well. I don't know if this is all electronic instrumentation or if this is live instrumentation. If it's electronic, then they've got a lot of skill in creating that kind of music. According to the composer John Robert Matz, For the King's soundtrack takes inspiration from early and Renaissance music. The score blends bardic folk instruments and orchestral elements to create a magical accompaniment for your noble quest to save Farul from the forces of chaos. I didn't play this game. Not that I'm obligated to play all of the games that I've gotten in this collection, but when I saw the description on Steam and it said, For the King is a strategic RPG that blends tabletop and roguelike elements in a challenging adventure that spans the realms, I was like, this might not be for me. It is cool that it's got a single-player mode, or you can play co-op both online and locally. So local strategy RPG multiplayer games are not that much of a thing from what I understand. So being able to chill out with a couple of your friends on the couch and play some strategy RPG stuff together, that's actually really cool and probably pretty innovative for this kind of a thing. Graphics are simple, colorful. It just looks like it could be pretty easy to get into and start playing. The game was released, like I said, in April of 2018, but in November of last year, the sequel, For the King 2, was released. So it must have garnered enough success to inspire a sequel for sure. And John Robert Matz also composed the soundtrack for that one. Probably not something I'll be picking up unless I happen to get it in another random game bundle, and I buy enough of them that it's entirely likely at some point it'll probably show up in my collection. But it's got 42 tracks and nearly 2 hours of Renaissance and folk-inspired fantasy adventure music, according to the composer. So if you're into For the King's soundtrack, you can pick up For the King 2's soundtrack and get more of the same. I thought that was pretty cool. So in terms of games, not my cup of tea, but someone out there might enjoy it. Probably the first game out of all of these where I didn't even have the motivation to try it. Great soundtrack all the same, though. Let's move on to our next tune. We're going to listen to Collective Consciousness from Danger Scavenger. This was released in 2020 for PC, composed by Simon Weiss. I think it's safe to say we're out of our chill portion of today's programming. That was Collective Consciousness from Danger Scavenger, released on the PC in 2020, composed by Simon Weiss. Really cool tune. I love the retro throwback synths over that kind of grindy beat. Very dancey, very techno. Kind of reminds me of like early 2000s electronica, but it goes a little bit harder, I think is what I'm trying to say. Good stuff. This whole soundtrack is like this. It's a cyberpunk style game, so you can expect a lot of techno and rave style music in this one. The whole soundtrack is available as a separate album, which I thought was super cool. It's just called Danger Scavenger, which I think is a cool name for a game to begin with. This is another one where folks compare it to Nuclear Throne or like Risk of Rain, and being games that I have never played before, maybe I should check them out, because this one's got, again, it's a top-down shooter, very similar to like Android Cactus or something like that, but with more roguelike elements. You're a team of people fighting robots on the rooftops of a futuristic city, and because you're in different places in this megalopolis all the time, the stages are randomly generated, so it's always a different series of skyscraper roofs that you are kind of running around and killing dudes. Earn loot, but again, it's permadeath, so if you die, you go back to the beginning, but you can carry over a lot of the loot that you get into the next gameplay, and eventually you're so overpowered that you can breeze through the game super quick, which is my kind of game for sure. Looks really cool. 8 to 10 hours to play. It's like $10 on Steam, regular price, so you can probably get it a lot cheaper than that. Not too much else to say, decent soundtrack, decent looking game, good artwork, some unique characters with a very kind of cel-shaded / cartoony art style. Probably worth looking into. This has a multiplayer local mode too, but what I've gathered from some reviews is that player 2 doesn't get to keep the stuff that they earn during their run, where player 1 is kind of like the primary character and keeps most of their loot even after death. So if you're going to play 2 players, maybe try to play the entire game at once. Just set aside a day and go through it and have some fun. Simon Weiss is a Polish composer, producer, mixer, masterer, engineer, drummer, and radio selector, whatever that means. I'm just going off of his website, which was translated from Polish into English. But he's got orchestral works, he's got DJ mixes, he edits his own videos, and he's written music for movies and games. Seems like he's mostly got regular releases and remixes of other folks' music, like Bjork and Autek and a couple of other electronic acts. So not too much in the way of video game soundtracks. This might actually be his first. But it's super cool. This is exactly the kind of music that I, again, like to chill out to. So alongside Grand Mountain Adventure, this was another one of my favorite soundtracks from this random bundle of games. All right, we got a couple of games from the same composer, Dominick Ninmark, coming up. He's a fantastic composer, writes some great soundtracks. These 2 games might be a little more familiar to folks than some of the other ones I've shared so far. We're going to listen to Stage 1, Neon Crisis, from the game Botvice. This was released on PC in 2016, again composed by Dominick Ninmark. What a classic sounding track. That was Stage 1, Neon Crisis, from the game Bot Vice, that was released on PC and Switch in 2016, composed by Dominick Ninmark. This game was created by Dia Games. They're an indie developer who's released quite a few games as of late, starting in 2015 with Superstar Path. Bot Vice came out in 2016. Our next game coming up, Strikey Sisters, in 2017. Viviette, which was kind of a Resident Evil 4 inspired RPG pixel art, came out in 2018. And then their last game to date was Evil Tonight in 2021. So they've got a few games on the roster. Their games tend to be, I think, very SNES inspired, like an SNES enhanced pixel art graphics, kind of Japanese influence. You get a lot of Natsume kind of a feel, especially Bot Vice. Bot Vice is a game that plays very much like Wild Guns, where you are a retired cop that's brought back on the force to take down a threat that's going to take over the whole city. The whole game takes place, you are at the bottom of the screen, running back and forth, kind of behind a whole bunch of like junk where you can kind of cover behind, and you run back and forth and shoot the enemies and dodge them. So like I said, it's very, very much like Wild Guns, NAM 75 for the Neo Geo, that kind of a game, and it works really, really well. This music fits perfectly with it, because I really think that this particular track and most of the soundtrack has a Super Nintendo Natsume vibe and brings to mind their Ninja Warriors game, Wild Guns, just a very up-tempo, energetic, action-style soundtrack. Dominick Ninmark is a very accomplished composer. He hails from Sweden, and he's written a whole bunch of soundtracks. His most recent one was Gravity Circuit, before that Blockum, Mighty Goose, Rival Mega Gun. He also wrote the soundtrack for Viviette from Dia Games, and quite a few others as well. His style changes up a bit. He's really able to become kind of a musical chameleon of sorts. I felt like, he really dialed in the theme for this particular game and knocked it out of the park. It's one of those soundtracks that does not feel out of place at all. While you're playing the game, it just feels like it's meant to be there. It is 100% what that soundtrack should be. Super fun game. I played quite a bit of it and will continue to play it. It's a great kind of pick 'em up and play game. You can grab the soundtrack on Dominick Ninmark's Bandcamp, and it's like $5 for like 42 tracks. There's 20 to 30 stages in this game, and each stage has its own individual song, plus some boss music, title themes, menu themes, and then a couple of unused themes at the end of the soundtrack. So it's a real good bang for your buck, especially if you like Ninmark's music, which is hard not to like, to be honest with you. Definitely recommended, one of my favorite games in this random bundle. Coming up, like I said a little bit earlier, we're going to listen to a track from Strikey Sisters. This was a Dia Games release the year after Bot Vice came out, and Dominick Ninmark's follow-up soundtrack. This one will sound a little bit different because it's about some witches. So let's hear how Ninmark's sound can change between games. That was Nable's theme from Strikey Sisters, released on the PC and Switch in 2017, again composed by Dominick Ninmark. A little bit of a different sound here. I mean, Daya's games are, like I said, very Super Nintendo style pixel art, so it was using a very similar instrument set. But this is slowed down a little bit, a little more emphasis on that melody there, where I think the Botvice track relied really on those kind of like chuggy, almost arpeggiated bass and guitar tones. This one's got maybe almost kind of like a chiptune Shinji Hosoe feel, where the bass is actually kind of a chuggy guitar, and then you've got the synths over it with a little bit of a kind of a dancey, swingy feel. It's got a good groove to it, and it sounds, like I said, a little bit more mystical. That synth is a little more rich and feels a little more ethereal than the hard cyber action of Botvice. All in all, really lucked out in terms of random games to get these two because, like I said, Ninmark's an amazing composer. I don't think I've shared much of his music on the show, so this was a great opportunity to break out a couple of tunes from his soundtracks and show them off. These games are usually pretty cheap. Like Strikey Sisters is on Steam right now for $1.99. It's on sale. Normal price is $10, and it unfortunately will be back to full price by the time this show is released, but throw it on your Steam wish list. It goes on sale all the time. You can grab it for super cheap. It's a really fun game, like I said. Pixel art. This one's kind of more like Breakout, where you're running along the bottom of the screen, similar to in Botvice, but you are smashing a magic ball against enemies and blocks at the top of the screen. And instead of having just kind of like a bat or a panel that the ball bounces off of, you have a sword swipe. And so when the ball comes to you, you swipe it with your sword, and then it'll smash back up to the top of the screen, destroy the enemies, and hopefully get you onto the next level. You can charge up your sword swipe so the ball will go super fast and do a little extra damage on the enemies you're trying to hit. You get icons that drop from the blocks, and those icons have spells. You can use your secondary attack button to do the different spells, which have different effects on the screen. There's two-player mode, so you can play two players simultaneously. And I forgot to mention with Botvice, but there are pretty full-fledged stories to their games as well. Lots of dialogue, lots of cutscenes, and they're all fully voice acted with really talented voice actors and actresses. So it's kind of a treat to just sit back and kind of watch the story in between playing some of the levels in the games as well. They're really well put together. I knew about Strikey Sisters and I knew about Botvice, but I hadn't kept up with their most recent releases. So Evil Tonight looks like a game that I might be interested in. I'm gonna check that one out, and hopefully it continues the level of quality that their previous games were known for. Again, you can grab this soundtrack on SoundCloud. It's got a ton of tracks, $5 total for the whole thing, and you get some amazing music to go along with it. Looking forward to sharing more Ninmark music on the show. Alright, so moving away from Dominick Ninmark's soundtracks, we got a couple tracks left. This one's called What's on the Menu from Speedrunners. This was a PC game that came out in 2016, composed by SonicPicnic. What's on the Menu from Speedrunners, released on PC in 2016, composed by the collective known as SonicPicnic. What's on the Menu being a clue to the fact that this is the menu theme of the game. I really, really like this one. It's got such a powerful brass section, kind of almost like a modern film noir kind of a sound to it. It's just really like spy fiction kind of stuff. I don't know, it's somewhere in between all those things. It's super fun for just hanging out on the menu screen and jamming out to this, or, rocking out as you wait for your friends to pick their characters and choose all their stuff for the game, because nobody can ever decide quickly. We know that. Anyways, SonicPicnic is a collective from the Netherlands. They've done music and sound for games, commercials, promos, film, animation. They've lent their audio talents to games like Swords and Soldiers and the sequel, Tokitori, and the sequel to that, Awesome Nauts, Blightbound, the Van Gogh multimedia game-ish thing called A Life Devoted to Art, Rocket Riot 3D, a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So they're no strangers to game soundtracks. Their latest soundtrack release was in August of 2023 for Everslot Invasion, which was a game I was not familiar with, but it looks pretty gory and zombie-like, so sounds like fun. Anyways, Speedrunners is a speedrunning game. You are literally one of 4 runners dropped into a level, and you have to use all your weapons at your disposal, plus elemental objects from within the level, to try and knock your opponents off the screen as you all run towards the finish line. It's one of those chaotic party games where it's just go, 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 and everybody either loses their minds and becomes bitter enemies, or has a great time and bonds with each other. It looks like a ton of fun. It's not really playable that much with one player, because then you're just playing against a bunch of bots, and it doesn't really there's no levels to progress from. You just choose whatever you want to do and go have fun. So, I don't know, maybe I get a bunch of friends over and we'll play. This has online or couch co-op, which I thought was pretty cool. And from what I've seen online, YouTubers doing some streams and stuff like that, it really does look like a ton of fun. So I was not familiar with this game at all when I got it in the bundle. And the more I did research on it, the more I was like, okay, now I got to get a bunch of people together and play. This looks like a really good one. And the soundtrack did not hurt at all. Of course, the level themes are a bit more fast-paced. There's a bit more urgency to them. I just really liked this menu theme because it was really my pace of music. I like stuff that's kind of heavy and in your face, but doesn't go a million miles a minute. I like a good, medium-paced, energetic song. So, perfect. All right, we are moving on to our last game of the show. I love the title of this one. It's called A Winter Is You, and this is the Icy Mountain Phase 2 theme from the game Chenso Club. This was a PC release in 2021, composed by Nasibas. Let's hit it. A Winter Is You, that was Icy Mountain Phase 2 from Chenso Club, released on PC in 2021, composed by Nasibas. And that was a great track. Nasibas is a fellow Swede, just like Dominick Ninmark, and I do hear a lot of similarities in these tracks. Just very competent mastery of electronic music and vibes, and taking classic VGM melodies and tropes and kind of punching them up for the 2020s. They're really, really good at that. So whatever they're doing in Sweden in their music schools, they are knocking it out of the park. I wasn't really that familiar with Nasibas, and I'm really, really digging this soundtrack. This one's got a little bit of a wintry feel. Those lead synths are kind of chimey and kind of have a little bit of a snowfall feel to them, but then you get that really powerful bass and drum combo going in the background, and it, like I said, punches it up quite a bit. Makes it feel really energetic and good. This is a game that needs a super energetic soundtrack because it's full of action. I guess in playing a little bit of it and watching a lot of video, the best way I could describe it is a multiplayer Shovel Knight. The graphics are not like true to NES style like Shovel Knight is. It's a little more colorful and a little more enhanced. So like Shovel Knight for the SNES, but 4-player and just full of crazy chaotic fun. It looks really good. I, of course, was only able to play it single player, so it felt a little bit empty when I was playing it, but this is another game where I just love to get 3 friends together at my house and then do some speedrunners and do some Chenso Club and play a bunch of these multiplayer games. I think that would be an absolute blast, and we'd have some great soundtracks to rock out to as well. Yeah, another game that would have completely passed me over, and there's always good stuff in these bundles. Like, I'm always worried that I'm going to get a whole bunch of tactical RPGs that I'm not going to be interested in, or, cheesy puzzles. But when they do these random game bundles, they really make sure that they have a kind of a wide swath of titles that are available to get. And I always wind up with a good smattering of genres, and even over years, there's some older games, there's some newer games, there's some games that are just very, very cheap on Steam, there's some games that, by themselves were more money than I paid for all of the keys in total, so it's always been worth it for me. And to kind of turn it around and make it into a VGMbassy episode where I can share some of these kind of overlooked games with you guys and some of these soundtracks that I really enjoy, it makes it worthwhile. So I have no regrets at all, regardless of what I get in these bundles. And like I said, if I already have the games, then it's just more stuff that I can put in the free key depot, and you guys can get some free games out of it on the Discord for VGMbassy, so it all works out. There were a bunch of games that did not make it onto the show for a bunch of reasons. Games like Arx Fatalis, which only had some ambient backgrounds. Hero of the Kingdom Lost Tales, the first game in the series, had music from a royalty-free music library, so it really wasn't worth sharing. Dragon Spirits was an RPG Maker game, and it didn't really have, great music. It felt very simple. Stuff like Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth, where, again, it was kind of ambient, dark soundtrack that didn't really have any songs that were appropriate for a VGM podcast. And a couple of other games like Cook Serve Delicious 2 and 3 were both in this bundle as well, which I'm looking forward to playing. But I think if I'm going to play stuff from those soundtracks, I might want to do it on a food-oriented show. Those might fit a themed show better than this random indie bundle. And I know they have great soundtracks, so look forward to me sharing those in a future episode. I also got Old School Musical, which has an enormous soundtracks, 108 pieces of music in this game, and from what I sampled, they were all really good. So I felt like instead of sharing it and talking about it on this show, I might do an episode on Old School Musical, or, I don't know, figure out some way to share some of those pieces of music, even if I did a show with 10 or 12 tracks on Old School Musical. That would only be like 10% of the soundtrack. That's insane. I can't believe how much music is in that game. So, again, fodder for future VGMbassy episodes. Speaking of future episodes, our next 100 episodes are going to be great. I've got plans in the works for a bunch of episodes coming up. If you heard my 100th episode, we talked to a bunch of VG ambassadors who will be popping up within the next couple months on the show. I'm really looking forward to getting together with them and sharing some cool tunes. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope maybe there's some games out there that you guys didn't know about that you want to put on your Steam wish lists, or just kind of go and pick up. If you do pick up any of these games and they have online multiplayer and you want to play a couple rounds with me, hit me up. I would be totally down to do some Steam online play and maybe play some Strikey Sisters or even try Speedrunners or Chenso Club. I mean, those all sound like really cool games that would be even more fun with multiple players. As usual, I want to thank Indira J for all of the podcast and website artwork, Trevin Hughes aka Dread for the brand new theme song, which totally kicks ass. I want to thank everyone out there for listening to the show. You know, if you are listening on Spotify or iTunes or Google Podcasts or YouTube or whatever, feel free to give the show a like, maybe a review, comment on the episodes. It kind of helps boost the show in the algorithm so more folks can find our podcast when they're looking for good VGM shows to listen to. I would really super appreciate that. I don't think I've had any reviews on Apple Podcasts since 2019 or something. It's been quite a while. So if you haven't, feel free to leave one. I would be super appreciative of that. If you want to find out more about the VGMbassy and more about the artists in this show, I will have links to their Bandcamps in the track listing. You can head over to thevgembassy.com, look at the track list on the most current show. I'll have Bandcamp links to the folks that do have Bandcamp listings for their soundtracks, and I think that's a good majority of the folks that we are featuring on today's episode. Like I said, some of the soundtracks are super cheap. $1 to $5 will sometimes get you over a dozen tracks, so that's a really, really good deal, especially for the quality that we've been showing off on this show. You can head over to patreon.com/thevgembassy, check out our VGMbassy Patreon tiers, and for as little as $1, you can get super cool perks for VGMbassy, including exclusive access to our Patreon-only Discord lounge, where you can hang out with the elite VG ambassadors of our show. As always, I'd like to thank all of my Patreon patrons by name at the end of the show, starting with our tourist tier, Cameron Shiles and the Phantom Meyer, our VGM series, Periodical, Chris Murray, Gannon11, Keyglyph, Kyle Kroll, Chris Myers, The Dyad, The Last Recon, and Professor Tom. Our audio attaché members, Cameron Worma, Kung Fu Carlito, Muddle Madness, and Scott McElhone. And of course, our special agent tier, Ryan Steele. We will be back in another 2 weeks with Joe and Todd for Embassy Exclusive. We'll be talking about modern topics in gaming and sometimes some classic topics in gaming. It'll be great fun as always. And then around the 15th of next month, another VGMbassy as usual. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for your support. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye, everyone.